So today I went and tried more endgame level or endgame price IEMs, namely the super popular and highly requested ones, the IER M9, the Campfire Andromeda 2020, the Thieaudio Divinity V16, and a few more. So in today's video, I'm gonna be covering all my first impression thoughts on the IEMs I've tried today. I think 7 in total. Hey friends, Team here, welcome back to another video on Thieaudio, and today we have more in-game first impressions. These are so much fun for me to do because now that I live in Japan, I actually get to go to an audio store and sample these things. US doesn't have any stores, it's so sad. Now, the first IEM, let's just get this one out of the way, it's the quickest one. A lot of people are curious about the differences between the MEST Japan and the MEST MK1, the international version. Now, for me, having tried the Japan and I also own the original, I didn't bring the original to the store so I couldn't A/B them directly, but just from testing the two separately all on the same day, I feel like they're largely similar. There's not huge differences, if any differences at all, that I can personally catch. I feel like they're largely the same IEM. You still get a really nice soundstage, good imaging like you get on the international MEST one on the Japanese MEST. So yeah, they're largely the same, at least to me. Both are great, and right now, the MEST MK1, the international version, is technically discontinued. They're not making that anymore. So if you want the MEST 1 sound, your only option would be to get the MEST Japan, which I don't know if you can get if you're outside of Japan. So yeah, if you want one, it's gonna be a little tough. Alternatively, the MEST MK2 is still a great option, though for me personally, I enjoy the MEST 1 more. I feel like the treble, the detail in the original MEST is a bit more wowing to me, but the MEST MK2 is the safer option, the bassier option. Many more people are going to enjoy the MEST 2 over the MEST 1. So yes, MEST 2 is still available everywhere. Next IEM is from FiiO, and this is their new FH9. Now the FH9 has its own cult following. If you dig through Headfire in any forums or any audio community, the FH9 has its own really quite big cult following, and a lot of people have stated that the FH9 blows other endgame IEM out of the water. So me, having read all of those, of course I have to go try it, and the FH9 to me is the best FiiO IEM. Yes, the best FiiO IEM so far, but still doesn't really compete at the price tag that it's asking for. It is $600. It retains kind of the FD5, the FD3, the FD7 type of signature, whereas V-Shape more focused on the mid bass. The mid bass is somewhat uncontrolled, but this time they actually have decent technical performance. There's decent details and decent layering, and the treble area on the FH9 is actually okay as well. Not the best treble, but okay. So for me, just based off my memories of every FiiO that I've ever tried, the FH9 comes across the most impressive. Though, again, for $600, I still recommend the variations, the Oracle, the SA6 over the FH9. Moving on, we have the Sony IER M9. Now, I can't tell you how many times people have asked me to try the M9, and yes, finally I got to it. Personally, I own the M7, I own the C1R, so where does the M9 fit? For me, the M9 is simply the M7, but just better across the board. Like, take the M7, it's like M7 is the infant, then the M9 is the adult version. It's just better in every way, similar tuning, still warm, really nicely done here though, better details, better soundstage, and overall balance is better as well. Treble is where I find the biggest improvement. The treble on the M9 is actually quite well extended, a little bit, I wouldn't say bright, but it seems to highlight the micro details better than the M7. So the M7 goes around $500 these days. The M9 goes for about $1,000. Now, is it a worthy upgrade to get the M9 instead of the M7? Or if you own the M7, to sell the M7, upgrade to an M9? For me, if you really love the signature of the M7, the M9 is just better. If you have the money, it's a great upgrade. It's just a very versatile IEM across the board. The one thing I like more about the M9 than the M7 as well is that it's not quite as boring as the M7. The M7 is just extremely safe. Just really good, but boring across the board. It's not a fun IEM to listen to. The M9 is kind of the same way. It's still a jack of all trades, but it doesn't feel as boring. There's still some fun elements to be found in the M9 that the M7 doesn't have, namely the bass being more dynamic, the treble being slightly bit more sparklier, and the overall details being better. So the M9 for me is a win over the M7, just in every way. If you have the money, the M9 is just better. Though I still have to say, even though it's great across the board, it's still not a special IEM to me. It just does everything well, but doesn't really shine in any one particular area. And that's kind of the quality that I look forward to in endgame level IEMs. I wanted to do something special. If I'm paying that much money, it needs to be special in some way. It doesn't need to be perfect across the board. I don't think anything's perfect across the board, but it should do a certain thing better than majority of other endgame IEMs, which I feel the M9 just doesn't have that special sauce, though it is probably the most well-rounded IEM within the $1,000 and under bracket. Now, the next one, this has the special sauce, but it is by no means for everybody. This one is the Andromeda 2020. This I love. This gave me the little tickling feeling in my brain that I wanted out of an endgame IEM. The first time I listened to it, the first few seconds, I feel it. The air, the treble, the detail is just so forward. It's aggressive, it's on the bright side for sure, but it's so satisfying. The level of air, the open soundstage is wonderful. Now, it doesn't have the best tuning out there, for sure. Like I said, it leans a little bit bright. The mid-range is not the most even mid-range out there either, so vocals are not gonna come across super correct. Also, with it being more analytical, more bright, it really doesn't feel as musical as you would want. It's more analytical, technical in nature, so not for everyone for sure. I'm not recommending the Andromeda 2020 outright, but what I'm saying is, it is very special. Very, very, very special. Simply put, I would say the Andromeda 2020 is one that I consider owning. I almost bought it on the spot, really. But good thing my wife was there and she stopped me from spending all that money. So good on her for saving my wallet, but I was so close to buying it on the spot. That's how much I love it. But again, not for everyone for sure. Really go and test it yourself first for this one especially. Do not blind buy this, despite how much you may want to, despite how much I'm hyping this up as a really amazing IEM, which it is. Don't blind buy this, please. Go test it out first. But yeah, I really, really love the Andromeda 2020. The soundstage is just top class. Like, I really want to A/B test it with the Anoli VX to see which one has the wider soundstage. So next time I go back to the earphone store, I'm gonna bring my Anoli VX with me just to A/B test with the Andromeda. And maybe next time I'll end up actually buying it. Speaking of treble and treble air, the next IEM has that in spades, maybe even too much. This one is the Thieaudio Trio. Boy, is this one resolving. It has a lot of micro nuances, a lot of air, but it's so jarring to listen to. Like, the Andromeda 2020 sits right on that edge of like, yes, amazing, it's so good. Wow, the Thieaudio Trio is just too much, you know, like too much treble, too much air, like it's distracting to the overall track. Now, if you pick certain songs that doesn't really focus too much on the higher frequency range, I tested it on Michael Bublé, You and I. On that particular song, or on any song that focuses more on the lower ranges, you probably won't notice the treble being way too annoying. But if your playlist is female vocals, or any genre that focuses on the upper mids and the treble area, boy, it's overwhelming. It's too much for me. I can see why a lot of people rate it super highly, because it does have a lot of details and the bass is generally dynamic and it's fun as well, but I feel like it's just a little bit too wonky in the upper treble for me. The air, that part is just too overwhelming. It's endgame quality, endgame detail, just the tuning, not for me. Next one, before we get to the V16, we have the Moondrop Illumination. Yes, I'm really late to this game, but the Illumination for me was just alright. like just flat out, just all right. I wouldn't recommend it at that price. For that price, I still would recommend the Variations, the Oracle, the Dunu SA6, or for a very similar price, I still recommend the S8 from the same company over the Illumination. For me, the Illumination just didn't feel as resolving as it should be for the price, and the tuning wasn't all to my liking either. The treble felt a little bit strange for me. Overall, from just a few songs I listened to it, I wasn't really that impressed. So Illumination, big pass for me, and I can see why a lot of people in the community don't really talk about that one much. And last but not least, the Thieaudio Divinity V16. Now, how is this one? As you guys know, I love my Monarch Mark II. How does the V16 match up with the Monarch Mark II? I would say the V16, if I can sum it up in one sentence, it is the #1 jack of all trades IEM. It does everything pretty much excellent. Though, again, same problem with the M9, well, somewhat same problem with the M9. It doesn't particularly jump at you as specialized in any one way, though it is just flat excellent across the board. The bass is really well done, has sub bass and mid bass as well, so for those of you who love the mid bass thump, you will get it on here. The bass texture is generally great as well, especially for a BA. The mid range is clean, the bass and lower mid separation is really nice, male vocals, female vocals sound correct. The upper mid has a lot of energy to counterbalance the bass. The treble is just as well done as on the Monarch Mark II. It's just overall a well-rounded IEM. The one thing that makes the Monarch more special than the V16, I would say, is the little bit less in mid-bass area, allowing for an overall cleaner and slightly bit more neutral signature on the Monarch Mark II as opposed to on the V16. So for me, I still personally prefer the Monarch Mark II. I like that signature more, and I feel like balance-wise, the Monarch Mark II is still king of that. The V16 leans a little bit on the bassier side, still plenty balance, mind you. This is just comparing two super endgames to each other. If you want an IEM that simply doesn't do anything wrong at all, and the best one that really can't do anything wrong, then the V16 simply is that IEM, is the king of jack of all trades. Yeah, not specialized in any way, but really can't complain about it. It's not boring, mind you, not like the M9 or the M7 or the U12T that can come across too safe and too boring. No, the V16 has it all. Fun bass, fun treble area, clean mid-range overall, just great. Just excellent. Nothing else to say. All right, that is it for this video today. Thank you so much for watching. If you tried any of these endgame pieces before, leave your thoughts down below on which one is your favorite. For me, it's the Andromeda 2020, hands down. I want to own that. It's the only one I consider purchasing. The V16 is great, yes, but I already have the Monarch Mark II, and I like that one more. So I'll never buy the V16, not the M9 either. The Andromeda 2020 is the only one I want to own. Maybe someday.